Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's comes at us from Victor. Hello, please react to the song Ode to Don Jose by Arts of Noise from the album In No Sense? Nonsense from 1987. It's just a nice coincidence, I suppose, that both of the tracks today came from the 80s, although the one we just checked out from The Police barely made the cut at 1980. The artist name Art of Noise, though, a little apprehensive diving into this. Let's check it out, see what they're bringing to the table with Ode to Don Jose. I like that high reverb wood clack. Why does that sound like SpongeBob's laugh? Yeah, we've lost the punctuating line, the descending pattern. Y'all got me on that one. That was one of the first chord progressions we've had this whole song. Oh, no, actually, we have had two chords in the main set keys.
it seriously? It's going to sound like a facetious question, but is it seriously for a pop record? The music. I mean, yeah.
That was a finale. Bum 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 ba da 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 dun dun dun. That's gonna be stuck in my head, dude. I can already tell. And the thing is it's not even handled in a catchy kind of way. Like the use of the delay actually creates a lot of dissonance as we're walking down a chord. We're not skipping thirds or anything like that where we can create distance. And what we end up hearing is two intervals playing right next to each other frequently. As we descend, we have the first note, then the first and second notes intervals overlapping, then the first three intervals overlapping as three is overlapping with two, and the new two has an echo of the first still going on, and it just creates something very crunchy and gritty and not distorted, dissonant. So also when you pair the delay on just the bum 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 bum, the delay isn't necessarily completely in beat, so it creates this rhythmic blurring going on there too. And all of this is what makes it interesting. If it was just the catchy melody, well, I mean, I don't think it would stand out as much as a track. But what I'm getting at is that it's not really a traditionally catchy idea in the way it's presented to me. The idea itself has stickiness to it. It is going to latch into your mind and stay there. But I think it's actually because of the weird elements that make it even catchier. Or maybe it's catchy despite them. I'm not really sure. The thing about catchiness in music is that it's not scientific. This might not even have been catchy for some of y'all. Just listening to it and it was just in one ear, out the other. You're going to forget about it 5 minutes after this video is over. In fact, you may have already turned the video off and have forgotten about the song entirely. What I have to say about it be damned. You're just like, nope, don't like it. And that's fair too. I mean, it's not an exact science. There isn't a way to make a melody that everyone will remember. But for whatever reason, for me, it clicks. Part of it, I think, is the repetition of it. You can't ignore that frequency is going to reduce memorability. That's scientifically backed right there. But I think the other side of the equation too is just the production of it. It's not like a single ba 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 ba. There's like a bounce or a spring to the pitch itself, and the overall volume is kind of wavy. It starts a little low, rises pretty high, then levels back out. Sort of like a wah 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 wah. It's almost impossible for me to do given the speed, but when you're programming it, it's easy to do just about anything. That's one of the neat things about electronic music is doing things that's extremely difficult, or as a hesitant as I am to say, impossible to do acoustically. You can get away with it digitally or electronically. There we go. Like what's going on here. So I think all of this kind of feeds into the memorability of it. Even if it's not remembering the melody itself, you remember the timbre of it, and then the melody comes with it. Because honestly, I can't say I've ever heard another melody using this instrument, this timbre, this coloring, this sound. And it is incredibly persistent, and you can't discount that either. But there's also so much else going on in this track. I think it's interesting that as much electronic music as y'all have introduced me to, as someone who has not really listened to any electronic music at all in my life, I don't use the term sonic collage as often in the genre as, honestly, in retrospect, I would expect myself to. The neat thing about electronic music is that You can make whatever sounds you want. And yet, somehow, so much music that comes out of the electronic world is, at least on the more popular side, what's bound to eventually hit my ears, is sonically cohesive. All of the sounds share some sort of production or timbre or coloring, and it all sounds like it fits. This doesn't, though. Between the what almost pass for acoustic instruments here, the acoustic instrument analogies, where they certainly sound electronic to me, but are trying to evoke an acoustic instrument, the digitization of voices in here, I'd even go as far to say that that main melody sounds like it is coming across from a digitized voice type of sample thing. It doesn't sound like any instrument except maybe the human voice, but it doesn't sound very human either. Then the plethora of other sounds and textures that I can't really ascribe to anything, so I'm going to lump into the, yes, that's definitely digital or electronic. And I got to remember this is 87. Probably weren't dealing with digital synthesizers, but I don't know, electronic synthesizer? I guess that's kind of the same thing. Digital to me, though, is like on a computer, and while an electronic synthesizer also probably has a computer in it, it isn't like a desktop computer, and I kind of see those separately, even though when I think about it, there's probably not much of a technical differentiation between the two. I just don't want to interchange those words as they mean different things to me, at least. Anyways, yes, there's definitely sounds in here that just, they don't have an analogy to something acoustic. And I find it really interesting how disparate this song can end up sounding. How many different ideas kind of clash, like seeing crayon and magazine cutout and photograph and, I don't know, pencil shading, like graphite shading, all in one picture. You can tell where each of the different parts of the entirety of the work came from a different source. And the music kind of feels that way too. And I've brought up this term of sonic collage before, but again, not as often as I would expect in the electronic world, where this can very easily happen. And I'll be completely honest, as someone who is inexperienced in electronic music, I feel like most of my attempts to create electronic music end up feeling this way. Simply because production is probably going to play a much larger role in making things sound cohesive than in genres where you're playing traditional instruments. And the timbres themselves just naturally mix because you're playing within genre convention, whether that is an orchestra or a rock band. We've kind of created these sounds that feel cohesive because we have heard these sounds all of our lives. So I find that really interesting in this track, and I don't really know where to place why it feels that way, or why other electronic music doesn't feel that way to me. But it does. Sonic Collage is the first thing that comes to mind, especially around like minute 2, as we began to introduce so many new ideas, and we have heard so many new ideas previously, and it just feels like they're all sourced from different places. And that's kind of neat. Ultimately, though, I think at the end of the day, I ask myself, what is this song trying to say? And here's where I kind of fall flat. It's a neat, to me, experiment. I don't know if Art of Noise viewed this as an experiment. For all I know, this is just their style. They had made several albums of stuff like this. They were just doing more of what they've already done. But to me, it sounds experimental. Part of that is probably the collage element of it, but it probably isn't fair either, because I am primarily used to digital electronic music, of having an audio workstation to work within, of basically having an infinite amount of sounds at your fingertips. And that's even before you begin to work outside of that, like having a modular synthesizer that you can patch into your audio workstation and then further modulate from there. The infinity of sounds that can exist within electronic music, and the wild stuff that some of y'all have had me listen to over the years on the less palatable side of electronic music, it feels incredibly more technical. Maybe not musically technical, but technical of finding these sounds and crafting them and modulating them and producing the music. Whereas maybe the music itself is just quarter notes and simple dynamics, but the way that it all ends up sounding is wild because it's all things I've never heard before. This ends up kind of feeling like child's play to that. And I would even say that some of the sounds here feel like what I would have grown up on like 90s Casio keyboards, little built-in sound effects that you can play with. Obviously modulated quite a bit further from that, but still it reminds me of some of that. And I have to remember that this is early electronic music, 1987. But it does feel, I suppose, underwhelming might be the word for it. And I have a tough time approaching it with its own context. And I think that's why I don't really know what to read out of it. Because for the time, this might have been cutting edge, but to me, it feels antiquated. And it's always tough to appreciate and understand older art, especially in a realm of rapid advancement, such as music, where especially around the 80s, 90s, and post 2000s, absolutely, the amounts of and types of music that we can create mixed with the democratization of music tools, being able to get it into more people's hands rather than just people who have money, has just rapidly accelerated what this art form can be and what it can do. And it makes something, it's only 30-ish, well, let's see, 26 to 87. Yeah. Okay, so about 40 years old, feel centuries dated. But I do get a lot of playfulness out of this, and maybe that's what it's supposed to be exploring. It is both sonic playfulness and rhythmic playfulness, and I'd even say melodic playfulness. Even though the core melody is just one idea, we do get to hear a couple of different melodies that bounce around it as well. But again, playful kind of goes back into that phrase I had used earlier where this feels, well, I used at the time childish, but what I meant was amateur. And again, that ties into me comparing this to modern day electronic, which isn't fair, but maybe that's also why it feels playful to me too. I don't know. There's a lot of biases and music experience that tie into how I read this track, unfortunately. And I need to spend some more time with it to get a more accurate read on what it's trying to do and maybe even get some context around its release to have a better understanding of that as well. But there is one thing I can talk about. I don't have much of an answer for it, but I got to bring it up because it's a big chunk of this track. The ending? Someone help me on this. There is just keys jingling for 30 seconds. And then that kind of transitions into someone fumbling through like a key ring and some people holding a conversation. Anyone? I can't just not bring it up, but I have nothing to add to it. I have no understanding of its placement within this track. I'm very lost on it. I was already trying to figure out what my thoughts were on this track and come to a better understanding of it. And then that happened. I don't know. I wish I could have explained this better, but hopefully the reaction itself and the conversation that ensued from it are worthwhile to spend 20 minutes with me. These are my thoughts on Ode to Don Jose from Art of Noise. What did you think of this? Is there anything that stood out to you? Anything that you'd like to add on to what I said or correct me on? Do you have your own take, perspective, or opinion on this? Is there anything you'd like to add? Just put all that into the comment section, as well as anything else you'd like to add to it. I don't know. I've lost the rhythm of this. Above that, in the description box, is a link to Linktree. Takes you here. You can find links to my music, ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord server, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. That wraps it up for today. I'll be back tomorrow, though, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, as usual. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you choose to watch my videos.